I am a control freak. The feeling of being out of control eventually leads to frustration that can lead to anger that can move on to anxiety on the inside of us. Well, you need to assess that and start to develop habits that allow you to do the right things. Master your mornings and your evenings. Welcome to the Serve One podcast. My name is Philip. I am a campus pastor at Elevation Church, and I am a control freak. Can any of you relate to that with me here for just a moment? I'm confessing to you right now, I am a control freak. I hate situations where I feel out of control. And for those of you out there that are listening to this and you're like, nah, I'm not a control freak. I'm totally fine, like just going with the flow, doing my thing. What do you do in situations where you feel out of control? Like everybody who gets in a situation that you're completely out of control, it must elicit some type of emotion inside of you. And I don't know what that is for you, but I imagine at some level that every person who listens to this podcast is a bit of a control freak. Sorry if I'm trying to put you in a box. If that's frustrating you, then I would say you're probably a control freak about it because you don't like that I'm telling you about it. Okay. I drop my daughter off at school every morning. And we get in the rider line, and I love this time where I get to drop her off. And we kind of have to weave back and forth through this line we get to the moment where I'm dropping her off. Well, there is this one spot where some cars choose, rather than waiting in the line like everybody else, they just decide, hey, I'm more important than everybody else, and I'm just going to cut through and jump in front of people. And it drives me crazy because I'm a control freak. I like to be in control, and I like for things to be orderly. It frustrates me when people just like slow down and allow that individual to get in front of them. Look, I understand that person is probably about to have a baby and they need to drop their first kid off so they can head on to the hospital. And I understand it's probably an emergency, but it frustrates me. I'm sorry, confessing here. It frustrates me. I like to be in control, and probably more than I like to be in control, I hate being out of control. That feeling of I have no way of impacting my future outcomes. I'm sure there are moments where you feel this way. Many of us feel like we're stuck in a dead-end job, and we have ambitions and dreams that we want to accomplish more. We think that God has called us to do more, to have greater influence, but we feel like we're stuck because our boss is not recognizing us. Or maybe we feel like we don't have the resources in our position to accomplish the things that God has placed on our heart. Maybe some of us are drowning in debt right now, and we feel completely out of control because all of our money each month goes to paying off credit cards and vehicles and whatever that might be for you. And you feel out of control because of that. Maybe some of you feel as though you are stuck inside of a relationship and you would like for it to get better. You have a hope and a dream for what that relationship could look like and to bring fulfillment into both your life and the person that you're in relationship with, but it just doesn't seem to be going the direction that you want it to go, and you start to feel completely out of control. Here's the danger. That feeling of being out of control over time leads to frustration. And listen to me right here. A lot of you are going to be able to identify yourself at some point in this list, right? So the feeling of being out of control eventually leads to frustration that can lead to anger, that can move on to anxiety on the inside of us. You can start to resent the people around you. If you don't deal with it, you start to feel depressed. You move into a space of isolation. You start to give up hope. And then you settle for less than God intended for your life. There has got to be a better way. I was really encouraged in reading the Bible and looking at the story of Esther. If you have not read this story, it is absolutely beautiful. It's in the Old Testament, about halfway through the Old Testament there. And the story of Esther is just this incredible story of God's redemptive power to use evil in order to help his people. And so Esther was in a situation where she is brought into King Xerxes' palace to be prepared for King Xerxes. She had absolutely no control of this situation. In fact, she's living in a land outside of her hometown. So she's living as a foreigner in a space where she gets pulled into a palace that she never belonged in, serving a king who is one of the worst individuals that ever walked the earth. And she's there being forced to be prepared for this person. In fact, one of the tensions that she gets brought into is because her uncle is at odds with somebody that works for the king and creates a bunch of tension. And since her uncle won't make things right, she has to show up and make things right. Her uncle actually comes to her and says, hey, this is on you. You need to make it right. Now, the crazy thing is, in order for Esther to make things right, she has to go before the king and request that he change, request that he has some understanding about this. The only thing at that time, if somebody were to go before the king, he could have them killed, right? She is completely out of control of her situation. She's completely out of control of her living circumstances. She's completely out of control of what will happen to her people if she doesn't step up and do something because her uncle is at odds with this other guy. She is not in control of any piece of this situation. But I want to encourage you to choose to be a control freak. Control what you can. Esther, in realizing the severity of this situation, calls on her people to fast and pray, and she chooses to go before the king. She puts her life in harm's way so that other people could be saved. What are the areas of your life that you can control in order to help somebody else? Be a control freak. Here's a few things that you can do is control your perspective in that job or in that relationship or with your finances. Control your perspective. How you view it determines how you get through it. You can walk through it with negativity and bitterness, or you can have an understanding that God's in control of this situation, and I'm going to control my perspective so that I can walk through this with grace, love, and understanding. I can control my choices. Nobody can force you to do anything. You are in control of the choices that you make. Now, we come under a lot of different pressure that pulls us in different directions, but what I want you to do is slow down and make smart decisions. And you can control your trust. The question is, do you trust the process that God has you walking through? Or are you so eager to jump to the next step? Or so eager to get beyond it? Or so eager to get out from what you feel like is controlling you that you're just going to jump to something different and you miss out on what God has for you? You can control your trust. I want you to be a control freak, but I want you to control the right things. Now, this is what helps me when I'm feeling out of control, some things that I can do, some decisions that I can make that helps me navigate through things in a healthy way. Because I don't want to be the parent in the rider line who chooses to run my vehicle into that person that just cut me off. Well, that wouldn't be Christian, and I wouldn't be a good witness, and I don't want my insurance bill to go up because I just crashed into somebody. I don't want to be known for anger, and I don't want to be ruled by my emotions. If you're like me and you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're completely ruled by your emotions, and next thing you know, your kids in the back seat are repeating words to you that you said to the person that cut you off, I know a lot of us have been there. My daughters have oftentimes reminded me by saying things about traffic and how they hate traffic. And I'm like, oh gosh, they're learning all of that from me. But I don't want to be ruled by my emotions. So here's a few things that I need you to do in order to help you be a control freak. And remember, we're controlling the right things. First thing you need to do is determine your values. Take time to just sit down and write out, what do I value in life? Is having a peaceful home a value for you? Do your actions reinforce having a peaceful home? Is integrity a value for you? And do your actions actually reinforce and help you be a person of integrity? Does standing up for what you believe in, is that a value for you? And do your actions reinforce that? In order for you to be able to navigate through some of the pressures and the moments where you feel out of control, when you understand what your values are, you will be able to understand the things that you feel out of control of that are not actually values in your life. You'll be able to pass on those. They actually will stop to bother you because it'll be like, oh, that's not truly what is important to me. This over here is what is important to me. Raising my family to love and care for people. That is a value that I want for my life and I want to be known for. That's what I'm going to prioritize. So determine your values. Next thing you need to do is to develop healthy habits. Once you have your set of values, you'll be able to develop habits that allow you to build those values into who you are. If you're walking through your life completely out of control and not knowing how to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, and you find yourself doing things that you don't really want to do, well, you need to assess that and start to develop habits that allow you to do the right things. Master your mornings and your evenings. You need to tell your day what it's going to do rather than coming into every day expecting that it's going to go well and getting to the end of the day and realizing, oh, that didn't quite go like I expected it to go. Well, when you have healthy habits, you've already determined how each one of your days is going to go. If you're struggling in your finances, develop a budget. This is something that is really, really helpful for you, but you need to have the habit of keeping up with your finances, keeping up with your budget so that you don't feel out of control and you can be a control freak. I want you to be a control freak with your finances so that you can find freedom and become everything that God has created you to be. So you're going to determine your values. You're going to develop healthy habits. And finally, if you're feeling in that space where you're stuck, I want to encourage you to do something drastic. Make a massive change in your life. Sometimes the reason we're struggling is because we're still hanging out with that same set of friends that when we decided we no longer want to be associated with the behaviors that we did when we were with that group of friends, and we're still hanging out with them. No wonder we keep on falling into the same set of sins or behaviors or activities that draw us down. No, somewhere along the way, you made a decision that God is calling me higher. There's more. And so you might need to find a new set of friends. I know that sounds harsh. It's a bit drastic, but it's something a control freak would do. Maybe what you need to do is shake everything up and move to a new area. I know this is very common. And I know in encouraging something like this, we often associate this with individuals who are running from something to get to something else. The problem is that you usually bring all of your old problems into your new situation. You just have a fresh start, so it takes a little bit of time before they manifest again. That's not what I'm talking about doing. After we have determined our values, we've developed some healthy habits. In order for us to move forward, we might need to go ahead and do something drastic and move to a new area and start a new life. But if you do that without values and healthy habits, you're going to fall into the same old thing. You'll find the same old group of friends. New faces, same friends. I need you to do something drastic. And for some of you, it might mean it's time to get another job. That maybe it is true that you are stifled by your boss. I would encourage you to do absolutely everything that you can to work with that individual. And I've talked at length about how to work with your boss. And maybe in upcoming podcasts, I'll talk about those work relationships and how to navigate through influence in the space that you are. But there does come a time where you might need to jump ship and move on to something else. Only if you're doing it because you're trying to be a control freak of your life and acknowledge that God has something more for you. The truth is, we all want to accomplish and be everything that God created us to be. Make sure that you are aligning your actions with the Word of God, that you're consulting what it says in His Word, that you're surrounding yourself with a group of friends that can encourage you and ask questions and help you determine what is the best course of action, and then move forward. I want you to control your life because it's through that ultimately God can be in control of everything that He wants to do and that He predetermined for you to become. Be a control freak. Go against the grain. That's what I'm here for, to encourage you, to help you grow, and help you be everything God's created you to be. I love y'all. Let me know how this is impacting you. Share it with somebody. Like, subscribe. Let me know how it's impacting you. Love you.